Ìròyìn ti dé o. Àgbo jẹ̀dí, àgbo ibà, àgbo typhoid, àgbo malaria.
In the early hours of that cold grey morning, before the cock crows, the elders arrived, their faces hard, their footsteps heavy with the weight of tradition. The air smelled of smoke and sorrow. They came for the child. Iyabisi, the late woman's closest friend, stood trembling by the doorway, her wrapper loosely tied, her eyes red and swollen. When they demanded the baby, her knees buckled beneath her. She fell to the ground, beating her chest as she cried out, the child is gone." She followed her mother in bed. Her voice broke, shaking like dry leaves carried away by the wind. In her arms, she clutched a small bundle, wrapped tightly in tea cloths. She handed it to them with trembling hands. They didn't bother to open it. They only nodded in silence. The elders carried what they believed to be the dead child and buried it beside the mother in the forest, chanting the old burial rites that forbade the living child of a dead mother to walk the earth. In the village of Ayojobe, the people believed that a child who survived a mother's death during birth was cursed, a bringer of misfortune. Such a child must never be allowed to live, lest calamity befall the entire village. And so, they buried both mother and child to keep the balance between the living and the dead. But what they buried that night was not flesh. It was only cloth and air. The moment the elders disappeared into the dark forest, Iyabisi ran, her feet pounding the dry earth. She held the real child, small, warm, and alive, close to her chest. Deeper and deeper, she ran into the forest until she found a hollow beneath an old tree. There, she hid the child, whispering softly, "Shh, my dear little one, the world must never know you breathe." When dawn came, the village stirred. Iyabisi began to pack her belongings into an old basket. Curious neighbors gathered, asking where she was going. She wiped her face with the edge of her wrapper and said quietly, "I can no longer stay near our house." I looked at her kitchen and I remember how we used to cook and borrow from each other. How we used to sit under the moon and talk until the stars came out. Now, the silence is too loud. The trauma is heavy. I must sleep before grief finishes me. And so, she left, moving far to the edge of the village, where the bush met the sky. That night, she returned to the tree and carried the hidden baby home. She nursed the child in secret, fed her from a calabash, and sang to her with trembling love. The seasons changed. The little girl grew, her laughter filling the small hut with life. But Iyabisi never allowed her outside. "The world is not your friend," she would whisper. "It wanted to kill you, so it must never see you." And so the child grew, beautiful, bright-eyed, but hidden. She had never felt the sun on her skin, nor the dust of the village wood beneath her feet. She only knew the corners of their small home and the sound of her mother's lullabies. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into years, and still, the little girl never stepped beyond the wooden walls of their home. Each morning, when Iyabisi left for the farm, she would whisper, "Do not open the door, my child, no matter the knock, except you hear the regular tone of my song. The sun outside does not shine for you." But curiosity has its own heartbeat. Through the small crack by the window, the girl found her word. She would peep and watch women heading to the farm, basket balanced on their heads, wrappers tight around their waists, laughter floating in the air. She would smile quietly, pretending she was one of them. Sometimes, she saw men marching to the forest with hunting nets and spears, their body glistening with morning sweat. She watched them until they disappeared behind the tall palm trees. And when children passed by, singing and carrying clay pots to the stream, she would press her face against the wooden frame, her eyes shining with longing. She would whisper to herself, "One day, I will fetch water too." But that day came far too soon. It was an evening soaked in gold, the sun bending low across the sky. As she watched from the window, a butterfly, yellow, soft and slow, it danced just outside the window. She smiled, stretched out her hand. Then another step, and another. And before she knew it, her bare feet touched the soil for the first time. She laughed softly and chased the butterfly through the garden, past the yam heaps, into the open path. The farmers saw her first, a young girl with bright eyes, running through the dust, her hair glistening in the dying light. They froze. One of the old women gasped and dropped her basket. Her voice trembled. That face! That is Kemi's face. She looks just like Kemi, who had died 8 years ago while trying to give birth. Fear spread through their whispers like wildfire. By nightfall, the story had reached the king's palace. The next morning, before sun rose, the king's guard arrived. They did not knock. They broke through the small wooden door. The child still half asleep. She cried. She tried to call out for her mother, but rough hands covered her mouth. Her cries faded into the wind as they carried her away. When Iyabisi returned from the farm, from a distance, she saw her door wide open. Her basket fell from her head. Her heart began to pound. She rushed inside. The mat was empty, the calabash untouched. My child, Ronke, Ronke, where are you? Ronke, it's me. I am back from farm. Ronke, oh. Her voice tore through the air, but only silence answered. She searched behind the house, by the udala tree, through the bush path, nothing. And then she fell to the ground, wailing, a cry so sharp that even the birds stopped singing. Before the tears could dry on her cheek, the king's men came again. They tied her wrist and dragged her through the dust. You have defied the gods, they said. You hid a cursed child. The villagers watched in silence as she was banished, her figure swallowed by the forest path. That same evening, deep in the forest, they tied Ronke to a tree, under the same tree where her mother had been buried 8 years ago. She cried, calling out for a name that would never answer. Her small voice echoed through the branches, breaking with each breath, and as night fell, the wind carried her sobs across the forest, a song of fear, innocence, and pain. On the seventh morning, as tradition demanded, the elders went into the forest. It was a day of reckoning, the day the spirit of the land must be appeased after the death of an abominable child. They carried gauls of palm wine, dry leaves, and clay pots filled with herbs for cleansing. But when they reached the tree, what they saw froze their hearts. The tree was dead, dry leaves falling off. The rope was still there, hanging loosely, stained with blood that had turned brown under the sun. The ground was disturbed, and the air heavy with silence. And Ronke, the child, was gone. They searched around the bushes, calling softly as if afraid to awake something. No trace of her, only the rope, only the blood, and the dead tree. They looked at one another and nodded slowly. It is finished, one of them said. A wild beast must have eaten her. They did not speak again. They poured out the palm wine on the ground, whispered a short prayer to the gods, and performed the cleansing rites. Then they turned and left the forest behind them. After that day, the village breathed easily again. The farms flourished. Children were born without sickness, and every festival season was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Peace rested on the village like the calm after a heavy rain. Years folded into years, and 22 years passed like a long dream. Then, one quiet morning, when the sun leaned lazily on the hills, a strange woman walked into the village. She was beautiful. Her skin shone like fresh palm oil. Her wrapper neatly bright, and a black bowl rested gracefully on her head, filled with steaming ado in different plastic bottles. She stood in the village square and called out in a voice clearer as water.
Aláboyún ti dé o. Àgbo jẹ̀dí, àgbo ibà, àgbo typhoid, àgbo malaria, ọ̀dẹ́yẹyẹ.
At first, only 2 people came forward. Curious, cautious, they drank. The next day, she returned again, still smiling, still calling out.
Aláboyún ti dé o. Àgbo jẹ̀dí, àgbo ibà, àgbo typhoid, àgbo malaria, ọ̀dẹ́yẹyẹ.
By the third day, the crowd had doubled, and by the seventh day, almost the entire village was drinking her agbo. They said it worked wonders, that it cleared the body, healed the bones, and made men strong and women bright again. They praised her, they blessed her. Farmers don't go to farm until she serves them agbo. Ronke became the heartbeat of the village. Men, women, and even children loved her agbo with all their souls. They said he gave them life, strength, and joy. The day she did not come to the market, the air in the village would grow heavy. People would murmur. They missed her so much that they decided to give her a piece of land beside the square. Build your store here, they said, smiling, so that we can always find you. And so, Ronke built a beautiful store, bigger than any other in the market. She painted it with red clay and white chalk marks, and decorated it with cowries and herbs. From morning till evening, people crowded around her, drinking, laughing, and praising her name. Then, when the sun began to set, she would quietly close her store, tie her wrapper, and walk away toward the bush paths. No one ever knew where she truly stayed. Soon, the old men who had stopped farming years ago, due to old age, were able to carry their machetes again. The old women tied their wrappers tight and carried their hoes again to the farms. They began to struggle the lands they had given out many years ago. This land is mine, an old man shouted. You only farmed it because I was too weak to come here. Now I am strong. So give it back to me. You gave it to me, old man, the younger one replied. Now you want to take it back? Voices rose. Cutlasses glittered. Women screamed. The farms became battlefields. From one end of the village to another, quarrels broke out. Brothers fought brothers. Fathers fought sons. Mothers fought daughters. Blood soaked the soil that once fed them. Each time someone died in the struggle, Ronke would smile quietly from her store, her eyes glittering beneath her wrapper. Her laughter was small, but it carried through the wind like a whisper from the spirits. Days passed, and her fame grew, until one morning, she did not come to the market. The first day, people waited. The second day, they murmured. By the third day, they began to worry. And by the seventh day, chaos had fallen. People cried and rolled on the ground. Men groaned. Women wailed, holding their stomachs. Their bodies grew weak, like something was draining the life out of them. Ronke, Ronke, oh, they cried. Come and save us. We are dying. But Ronke did not come. One by one, people began to die. By the seventh night, nearly half of the village had perished. The once lively village was now filled with the smell of decay and mourning. Then, on the eighth morning, Ronke appeared. She walked into the village slowly, her beauty brighter than ever. No ado, no guilt. The people rushed to her, kneeling, wailing, holding her wrapper. Ronke, oh, why did you abandon us? Half the village is gone. Why didn't you come? But Ronke only smiled. Then she began to laugh, softly at first, then louder, until even the birds stopped singing. The king himself stepped forward, trembling. Why do you laugh, woman? Our people are dying. What is funny about death? She turned to him, her eyes glistening like wet charcoal. Her voice was calm. Because I wish they would all die, she said. All of them. Every single one. A gasp swept through the crowd. Then she spoke again. I am the child you tied to the tree. The abominable child you left to die. But I did not die. She found me. She asked me if I wanted revenge. And I said yes. She lifted her hands slowly towards the forest. For 22 years, she kept me. She taught me how to mix herbs and craft medicine. When it was time, she told me to return to the same tree where I was tied for 7 days and cut from its heart the wood that once held me captive. That wood became my agbo, and you fools drank it all with joy. Her laughter echoed again, long and deep. Now, my own pain is killing you all, and you will continue to die until the village is empty. The villagers fell to their knees, screaming for mercy, but Ronke turned away, her wrapper swaying like smoke. She walked slowly toward the forest path. At the edge, she stopped and looked back once, her eyes soft, but her face unreadable. The gods have repaid me, she whispered, and I am satisfied. Then, she disappeared into the forest. No one ever saw her again. But on cold nights, when the wind blew through the trees, the people swore they could still hear her voice calling softly.
Aláboyún ti dé o. Àgbo jẹ̀dí, àgbo ibà, àgbo typhoid, àgbo malaria. Odeyiru.
From that day onward, the people swore never again to bury a living child beside a dead mother. Fear gripped them each time they remember Aderonke's laughter, that chilling reminder that evil done in the name of tradition would one day return. The king decreed that no child should ever die for the sins or misfortunes of another, and so the custom was broken, but the scar of their past remained carved deep in the heart of every villager. Moral lesson: when wickedness hides beneath the cloth of tradition, it still remains wickedness. Taking what is not yours or shedding innocent blood all return in their time. Do not let fear of custom make you forget your humanity. For every evil done in silence would one day speak aloud. Thank you so much, my dear viewers, for watching this story to the end. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps these African folktales alive. Till next time, stay kind, stay human, and never forget the lessons our ancestors left behind.
Bye.